A statement from Coach Franklin, and then we'll go to Rich Scarcella.
Appreciate everybody being here in person or online. Kind of reviewing the previous game and then getting into the next one. You know, when you talk about the stats that we talk about every week, you know, we weren't able to win those, and obviously that was the major factor in the game. We lost the turnover battle, which was the biggest factor in the game. Penalties, drive start, sack battle, and explosive plays, really all of the critical statistics. You know, we weren't able to win. And obviously you have a hard time being successful when you don't do that. When you talk about the positives of the game after watching it, I thought our kids played their tails off, played hard, physical, and fast, and really did some good things for 3.5 quarters. Obviously opportunities for growth. We got to finish. We got to win the fourth quarter. We got to punt, kick off, and kick field goals more consistently. And like I already stated, you know, we can't turn the ball over 4 times against that type of opponent and expect to win. When you get into Indiana and Tom Allen on the road, obviously have gotten to know Tom really well, you know, since he's joined the league, and got a ton of respect for Tom. Good man, good person, good coach. Offensive coordinator Walt Bell. I know Walt from his time as the head coach at UMass, as well as the offensive coordinator at Florida State and Maryland. High tempo offense, maybe the fastest offense in the country when it comes to tempo. Guys that we're impressed with is the Auburn transfer at running back, Shawn Shivers, who we're familiar with. The running back that's giving them juice right now, Jalen Lucas, as both a return man and a running back. The quarterback, Bazelak, who was also a transfer. And then a receiver that we're familiar with, Emory Simmons, is also a transfer. Defensively, from what we understand, Tom is calling the defense. But Chad Wilt is the defensive coordinator. Obviously, those two are working together. Chad's actually from Carlisle, Pennsylvania, but Tom is calling the defense from the way we understand it. Got a lot of respect for Chad. I've known him for a long time. Most recently was at Minnesota, was at Cincinnati before that. Guys that we're impressed with on the on the defensive side of the ball: cornerback number 23, Jalen Williams. Defensive end number 92, Alfred Bryant. Will linebacker number 44, Aaron Casey. Cornerback, who seems like he's been playing there forever, Taiwan Mullen. And then, you know, we're not really sure what's going to happen, but make the argument their best player, number 4, Cam Jones, has been out the last couple weeks, and he's week to week. So we're preparing as if he'll be back. And then on special teams, Casey Tiergarten is a special teams coordinator, been there for the last couple of years. Again, Jalen Lucas shows up as a kick returner. Their kicker, Charles Campbell, has been pretty consistent, 80% on field goals with a long of 51, 18 for 18 on PATs. And then also James Evan. They got a New Zealand punter who does a nice job for him. So that's kind of where we're at on the road. Be a challenging situation. Got to get our guys ready. Got to practice well today. Go find a way to be 1-0 this week. So open up the questions.
Rich Scarcella, and then Mark Wigenrich.
Good afternoon, James. How are you today?
Hey, Rich. How are you? Good.
I'm okay. I'm really good. Thank you. Hey, now that you have 2 conference losses, would you consider taking a longer look at Drew at quarterback the rest of the way?
Yeah, I guess first of all, it's not a decision that I make on my own. I want to, you know, whenever there's big decisions like that, I want to make sure that I'm not too close to it. So I had a pretty good conversation with Mike Yurcich, obviously. Talked to Manny Diaz about it, talked to Coach Wiz about it, talked to Danny O'Brien. So I talked to the guys that, either been a college or NFL head coach before. Also talked to a guy who played the position as well and got everybody's thoughts. And we'll continue to evaluate it like we always do. But I guess, and I understand the question, I truly do, but it almost comes off to me when I've gotten that question multiple times as if this game is not really important. So for us, we're going to look at who gives us the best chance to be 1-0 this week and go from there. And whoever that is based on this week's practice and preparation, we'll go with. And that's really kind of how it's been all year long. So again, but I've had good conversations with a bunch of members of the staff about it, making sure we're all on the same page, making sure everybody kind of sees it the same way. Obviously it's Tuesday, so we haven't even practiced yet, but I guess that's where I struggle a little bit with. There's still a ton of football left to be played, and whoever's going to give us a chance to be 1-0 this week and have a chance to win a bunch of games this year, for all the guys in the locker room, that's who we're going to go with. But I just, the question, and similar questions like that, I don't necessarily love the tone of it, but I get it, Rich. I don't hope this doesn't come off as an attack on you. I don't mean it that way. I just, to me, it's an interesting question.
Mark Wogenrich and then Frank Bodani.
Great.
Hey, Mark.
I would like to follow up on Rich's question, though. We have not seen Drew practice. That's how you evaluate him. So how has Drew been practicing over the last month?
It's interesting because you guys do get to see it. And I've actually, looking at everything, studying everything. And it's amazing how many programs don't allow media in practice anymore. Kind of went through each of the Big Ten teams and kind of looking at everything, obviously looking at offense, looking at defense, looking at special teams, looking at strength and conditioning, looking at all of it, looking at media access, looking at all of it. But he's done a nice job in practice. Obviously, there's a lot of excitement about him.
Frank Bodani and then Mike Gross.
Hey, good afternoon, James.
Good afternoon.
Yes. Do you have a philosophy on, or just thoughts or feelings on playing two quarterbacks during a game? Is that something you would consider? Is that kind of against the way that you look at things? Is it just the situation at hand? And just wondered your thoughts on that.
Well, considering we've already done that this year, I don't totally understand the question, but each circumstance is kind of on its own. Again, whatever's going to give us the best chance to be 1-0 this week.
Mike Gross, then Donnie Collins.
Good afternoon, James. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. You talked at the outset about how you lost the key battles, statistical battles that you sort of look at on Saturday. I wonder if watching the film, how do you think it went on a sort of snap for snap matchup basis? Because I thought it looked like in a lot of ways you matched up well with them, particularly on the line of scrimmage on a sort of play for play basis. What did you see when you looked at the film? And I mean, am I making any sense at all? Or?
No, again, I'm not sure. What their ranking is right now, but they're a very, very talented team. And I thought we played our tails off and competed really well for 3.5 quarters. They were able to make some plays late in the game. From an opportunity standpoint, from a talent standpoint. But yeah, I think your point is good. We matched up and competed and battled, and although they made some plays, we were able to limit the impact of them. We turned the ball over earlier in the game. Their defensive ends were able to get their hands up and bat a few balls down, and 9 times out of 10, those balls go to the ground and they were able to make plays on it. But then our defense was able to play really well and make sure that, we didn't give up touchdowns off of those turnovers. So all in all, again, I think our kids matched up and played their tails off for 3.5 quarters. I also know this is a team, you even look at them when they played some earlier games in the season, where it's been competitive in the first half and not as competitive in the second half. And we were able to do that much better.
Donnie Collins and Ben Jones.
Hey, James.
Hey, Donnie.
Kind of on that tone what you just said, do you as a coach, when you're looking at growth and looking at getting better week to week, do you watch that film and hope players look at the first 50 minutes where you guys are really good or the last 10 minutes where it's not so good? Where do you think most growth comes from when you're looking at a film like that?
Yeah, I think you got to look at it all, right? You can't pick and choose the stuff you like and discard the stuff you don't like. You got to look at it all. And to me, the thing that was obvious to us as a coaching staff, and whether people agree with this or not, we're better than we were 2 weeks ago. We played better. We're better than we were a week ago. We have gotten better. Not enough to beat that type of team. I totally recognize that. But we've gotten better. When you watch the tape, there was a ton of stuff on that film to feel good about and be proud of. But, you talk about 4 to 6 plays on offense, 4 to 6 plays on defense, and 2 to 3 plays on defense. And against that type of team, those plays are significant. And, but yeah, I think you gotta look at it all. But I think after watching it all and studying it all and critiquing it all, coaches, players, myself, everybody, I think we felt like as a staff that we got better. But we had critical mistakes, and against that type of opponent, when you make a critical mistake, they got a chance to make you pay for it.
Ben Jones and Corey Geiger.
Hey, James, how's it going?
Hey, Ben.
You were talking about, the idea that people will say a quarterback change sort of disregards the idea that you should put your best foot forward every week or that the game doesn't matter or something like that. For you, what's the material value in, let's say, 8 wins versus 11 wins in a season, regardless of where the losses come from? And how do you balance the responsibility that you have every week to put your best foot forward with the responsibility to sort of prepare for the future to the best of your ability?
Yeah, I think that's a good question, and specifically how you stated it. I think I have a responsibility to the guys in the locker room as well as the coaches to give us the best chance to win as many games as we possibly can. And you threw some numbers out there. And what you'd like to do at the same time is getting better and building for your future. And I hope that you can do those two things together. I don't think they're exclusive of one another. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of factors that play into that that are going to allow you to maybe, prepare for the future a little bit more. But I just think there's a balance between the two. I think there's a balance between the two. And for me, I think you guys know we've said it enough, but ultimately I got to do what's best for Penn State to be 1-0 this weekend. And again, when I say that, that's not me making this decision on my own. It's making sure I've talked to enough people that not just at the quarterback position, but every position, that nobody is making decisions in a silo by themselves. No one's determining the defensive end or defensive tackle reps on their own. It's a discussion with the defensive staff and then myself as well. So you're trying to factor all those things in, and the plan is to try to be able to do both at the same time, which isn't always perfect or ideal, but that's what you're trying to do.
Corey Geiger, then John McGonigal.
Hi, James. That was pretty much what I was going to ask. So I just want to add one more element to maybe what Ben said and get your thoughts on this. With a quarterback, is it more difficult to do with offensive and defensive linemen? Maybe you can rotate guys in and out. Linebackers, you can rotate guys in and out and get them experience. The only way a quarterback gets experience is playing. So is that preparing for the future more challenging when you're dealing with a quarterback scenario?
Yes, because to your point, at other positions, you do more rotation. There's no doubt about it. You do more rotations. You get guys in and out. I think that's a fair point. It's harder to do. That's why the practice reps and the practice experience is so important. And then also the number of games that you're able to get, your backups into the game, which we've done. We've been able to do that a decent amount this year. Hopefully we can continue to do that.
Johnny McGonigal, and then we'll come in the room.
Hey, James, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. You've mentioned in the past Olu being a really smart, academically focused guy. How has he kind of handled the increased attention on him from an NFL draft analyst and draft world perspective? And we also saw him leave in the middle of the final drive of the game against Ohio State. How is he holding up?
Yeah, so as you guys know, injuries, I don't get into a whole lot of specifics and details. So we'll see how this week goes with him. And then, when you talk about the attention that Olu is getting based on his future, had a meeting with his mom and dad and Olu on Sunday, which was a very productive meeting. They're awesome people, and just really was able to kind of get their perspective on things. Show them how we can be a resource in terms of, getting them a lot of information so that they can make an educated decision. But just being as supportive as we possibly can be. And they're awesome people. I got a very close relationship with them. So does Coach Troutwine. So does Kevin Threlkill. I think Kevin exchanges texts with mom almost every day, and that was before all this stuff was going on. So they seem to be handling it well, but it's a lot. It's a lot, and the way the rules have changed has made it worse. I know in some ways I think it is better, but in some ways, like in the past, you couldn't talk to an agent. So the majority of the agents that followed the rules would follow them, and there'd be a few that wouldn't, obviously. But right now, their phone is ringing off the hook constantly. And I think sometimes those rules were good because it created a barrier for them a little bit. But it's a lot. But I think they seem to be asking all the right questions, and for the most part, are handling it well.
Mark?
James, if I could follow up on Olu, what is he doing so well that is appealing to NFL scouts? I know you're not an NFL scout, but you coached at that level. And for a kid at 19 to be projecting like that so early, how unique is that for an O-lineman?
Yeah, it's crazy when you say 19 years old, right? I think it's what I try to talk to the players all the time about is whether it's on an individual basis in terms of playing time, or whether it's on an individual basis on trying to be all conference, or whether it's on an individual basis trying to, get drafted and get drafted high, or even from a team perspective. It's about consistency. Almost all the guys in that locker room have shown the ability to flash from time to time and do some really special things. And I think that's what separates Olu. He's just so consistent with his approach, with his habits, with his maturity, with his drive towards being elite really in everything that he does. He's got a chance to be an academic All-American. He's got a chance to be the academic Heisman winner, which I think we've had one other in Urschel. And obviously he's being talked about as a first-round draft choice. I think the biggest thing is he has got unbelievable play strength. He is strong in the weight room, but he's got unbelievable play strength. He's usually in great position. If he is out, of position, he has the ability to get himself back into a winning position against a defensive end. But more than anything, it's just about his consistency. You watch the tape, and the guy has got play after play after play of protecting the quarterback's blind side and finishing blocks, and no drama. It's, to be honest with you, I don't think I've gotten a question about Olu all year long until he started being talked about as a first-round draft choice. Why? Because he's just doing his job. Most people only notice offensive linemen when they're not doing their job. Now everybody wants to talk about him, but he's an awesome kid out of Gonzaga High School. He's a Maryland kid, but went to school in D.C. That program did a phenomenal job with him. The parents did a phenomenal job raising him. He's just a really good example, model of doing your job at a high level consistency. And people notice that. And I don't care what industry you're in.
Tyler?
James, you talked about the ongoing dialogue with your coaching staff at different positions, but when it's the quarterback conversation and one guy's an unprecedented 4-time team captain and the other is a true freshman, how much is that, beyond the talent, beyond what you're seeing on the practice field, how much is that a centerpiece of those conversations?
It's funny that you say that, because I've noticed this year, and I actually even think this week, I've noticed this year a ton of it. I don't know if it's the COVID 6-year deal or what, but I've noticed a ton of guys that were voted captain in preseason, that aren't starting anymore, across the league or across the opponents that we've played. So that really hasn't factored into any of the discussions that we have had. Shawn has earned that through the players' vote and how he's conducted himself all off season. And so the rest of the captains, but then there's still kind of a responsibility for, doing your job at a high level. And I think that's the thing that I don't know if everybody recognizes, because I understand the emotion and the passion and all that kind of stuff. If you go back and watch the tape, the guy played his tail off and made some really good plays in that game, and made some really good plays in the previous game, which I think I came in here and talked to you guys about. He made 2 throws in the last game, as good as I've seen him made since he's been here. But obviously there's 4 to 6 plays that we got to get rid of. So that was not part of the discussion of what you just brought up.
Neil?
James, I wonder how much you've talked to a lot of people. You've been open about that. After a game like that with a 6-year player, how much input and discussion has there been with, say, him in a one-on-one way, post Ohio State?
When you say input, what are you talking about?
I just wonder
plan,
if the 6-year dynamic changes the customary way, and the same at the other end where there's player freedom for the young players. Is it different now with that dynamic than maybe it was when you had a kid redshirting and you knew it, and those type of things?
Yeah, I do. I think that's a fair question. I think just based on 6 years and time and experiences, and it obviously lends itself to having a different level relationship. There's no doubt about it. But I would say there's guys that just based on their personality have been in the program 2 years that I'm very close with, just because of how open they are, and that's their relationship. I got other guys that are older guys that have said like 12 words that I wish I was closer with. One of the things that me and my wife talk about all the time is one of the things that we miss about being a position coach is the position coaches don't know the team as well as I do, because I've been in all of their homes. I've been the consistent factor here, but you don't get to know one position or one player on the same level. When it's your position and you have them over for dinner every Thursday night and you're tracking their academics specifically, and you're talking to their parents and you're dealing with issues and girlfriends broken up and things like that. I don't get all of that. So I miss that. But to your point, just 6 years and the nature of the position, and back to Tyler's point about being a captain, I have more conversations with the captains than I do other positions. So I think it's a little bit based on the kid and the personality. Like Jerry Cross is a kid who's very open and engaging for a young kid who hasn't been on campus very long. So it's really player specific, but I think your point is, right now, kind of the weird place that we are in college football with guys being in programs for 6 years, that factors into it too. But it's not like I'm talking about that. I don't think it's appropriate to ask him what he thinks. Although he did come up to me on Sunday and wanted to talk to me on Monday, but we haven't had that conversation yet.
Audrey.
James, going back to the quarterback, and you said about talking with Mike about it, talking with Manny about it. What has Mike told you about Drew? What's impressed him this year? And kind of going back to what Mark asked about practice, what are some of the things that he's doing well, areas that you've seen him grow this year? Yeah,
so probably some of the stuff that you guys have seen when you're out at practice. It's funny, I remember standing there with Joel Klatt. I think it may have been before the Purdue game, and Joel, watched 5 or 6 throws, and he's a giant human being with a quick release that can get the ball out and make all the throws. So he's got tremendous arm talent. Some guys that are big, strong arm guys are not very accurate. He is shown to be accurate. He can throw from different launch points and angles. And for a young kid, and I think Shawn's been a big part of this, but for a young kid, I think he's doing a really good job of preparing. I really think that whole quarterback room is as well, Vayer and Prabula as well. Those guys are really working hard and preparing the right way. Probably more so, than maybe other quarterback rooms I've had in the past. They've done a good job, and Drew's been a big part of that. I think I've told you guys before that, probably Shawn's superpower is how he studies the game and understands protection in the run game. So him in meetings and some of the dialogue and discussion with Mike and with the young quarterbacks, I think has been really valuable for those guys. So he's doing a lot of things well. But again, he's still a true freshman.
Sauber.
James, to go back to Olu, you mentioned all the intangibles he has, his intelligence and everything like that. Is there anything you've learned from him specifically in his development that you can apply to other offensive linemen? Because we haven't necessarily seen a step that quickly in your tenure.
Yeah, it's not just our time here. It's unusual, right? You don't usually hear a guy who's a first-year starter and 19 years old. It also helps that he's 6'6", 315 pounds, and smart and strong and intelligent. So yeah, I think what we always do, whether it's through recruiting or whether it's through development, with guys that we got or guys that we lost that have gone somewhere else, you're always kind of going back and studying best practice and what you did well and what you can do better. And I think Olu's kind of an example of what I think we've talked about in the past is when you recruited Olu and you kind of have your list, say you got a list of 25 characteristics with Olu, he checked most of the boxes. And I think that what I have found over my time, whether it's in the NFL or college, the guys that just have a lot of boxes checked, they usually do well. I think Trace McSorley is a good example of that, where he may have not been 6'3", he checked pretty much every other box. And I think, through recruiting, whether it's in college or the NFL, guys that just have a lot of high-level traits like Olu, your hit rate is going to be a lot higher rather than some guys that may have one really elite trait but are lacking in some others. And it's easy to get caught up in that one elite trait, really fast or really big or whatever it may be, really strong arm or whatever it may be, that you tend to rationalize or overlook the other things.
Audrey?
Going back to your running backs, obviously we saw Kaytron start on Saturday. What do you like about his running style, the way that he's played, and also how has Kayvon kind of handled his role, the way this thing's emerged?
Yeah, Kayvon's been hurt. As you guys know, I don't get into injuries, and sometimes for a situation like this, but Kayvon is either been out or limited for 5 weeks. So, we are hopeful to have him back. When we have him back, we feel like we got 3 really good backs that now at this point of the season are experienced and can make plays in both the pass and run game. But yeah, those 2 young kids have really complemented each other well. Kaytron's got, ability to set up blocks. He's got tremendous vision. Like the run you saw on Saturday, he's got the ability to finish runs with power. It's just a very well-rounded running back. He's got a very high football IQ. And I think really him and Nick are really good complementary pieces. But as we've all seen around college football and what's happened with Kayvon, you want to rotate those guys as much as you can to keep them healthy. And we've been fortunate this year to pretty much every week have at least 2 backs that we feel really good about. So it'll be nice. Hopefully, if we're in a situation, hopefully we'll have Kayvon back this week. I actually just met with him yesterday. I had a really good meeting with him yesterday.
T. Frank.
Hey, James, over here.
Hey, T.
Hey, you mentioned Tom Allen as the defensive play caller for Indiana. What does he do from a defensive structure that challenges teams? Because it seems at his time during his time at Indiana, he's been a very tough out for not just your team, but a lot of teams in the Big Ten.
Yeah. I think this is like one of the first years that he's gone back to doing it. But I think, obviously defensive coordinators and people with similar philosophies and things like that, he's like a lot of defensive coordinators. It is very important for him to make you one-dimensional and to stop the run, and he's going to use as many resources as he has to stop the run. Whether that's in recruiting, whether that is in scheme, whether that is numbers in the box, whether that is angling or slanting or stunning or whatever, however you want to describe it, dropping safeties down in the box like we used to do with Marcus Allen, who actually sent me a autographed jersey yesterday, which was really cool. I'm super proud of him. But there's a lot of different ways to do it, right? And he's committed to doing it and making you one-dimensional. When you study all the analytics, that comes true, over and over again, not only this year, but this, really his career, to your point, really shows up on short yardage situations, 3rd and 4th down short yardage situations. And then they do some good things coverage wise, where they probably have a little bit more diversity coverage wise through scheme, to try to make up for the commitment that they're making to stop the run, to try to, force you into some bad decisions through scheme, so just like we have faced, over my time here, those coverages can cause you problems and create some opportunities, but there's weaknesses in every coverage as well. And hopefully you have the right play called at the right time and the quarterback's seeing it the same way you are. So it will be a challenge. Be interesting to see how this thing plays out.
Last question to Zach.
Hey, James. Zach Allen, Daily Collegian.
Zach.
Parker Washington had his best game of the season. He almost had 200 receiving yards. Has he asserted himself as the team's #1 receiver?
Yeah, I don't think there was any question of that, based on what he had done last year and the year before. He was coming into the season. He was the most established wideout that we've had at Penn State. On our roster, obviously, Mitch had done some good things, but he hadn't done it yet at Penn State. So yeah.
Thank you, Coach.
Thanks, guys.